It's April 14th, 1935, Palm Sunday, Kuokmi in the Oklahoma panhandle. The morning was clear and warm, the first good day in weeks. Families are outside, and then, on the horizon, the day simply ends. A black wall hundreds of feet high and moving 60 miles an hour swallows the horizon whole. Birds fly screaming ahead of it. Inside it is darker than any night. People cannot see their own hands. Some of them kneeling in their homes at midday genuinely believed the world was ending. They called it Black Sunday. And it wasn't weather. It was the land itself, millions of acres of soil that human hands had loosened, rising up and moving. This is the story of how a nation turned its own ground into a weapon against itself. To understand the black blizzards, you have to understand what the plains were before. For thousands of years, this was grassland, a tough, deep-rooted carpet of native grass that held the soil down through drought and wind alike. The grass was the armor. Then came the wheat boom. In the 1910s and 20s, wheat prices soared. War in Europe, new tractors, cheap land. And so, in one of the fastest transformations of landscape in human history, millions of acres of that ancient grass were plowed under. They called it the Great Plow-up. And here is the quiet part of this catastrophe. For a decade, it worked. Rain was unusually generous. Harvests were huge. Suitcase farmers. Speculators who plowed land they didn't even live on, poured in. Everyone with a tractor was told the same comforting thing. Rain follows the plow. The land seemed to agree. The armor was gone. Tens of millions of acres of bare, pulverized topsoil lay exposed. All the system needed to become a disaster was for the rain to stop. In 1931, it stopped. The drought settled in and stayed for most of a decade, and the exposed soil with no roots to hold it simply took to the air. 14 major dust storms in 1932, 38 in 1933. By the mid-1930s, some counties saw more than 100 days a year with dust in the air. People lived inside the storms. They taped windows, hung wet sheets over doors, and still woke with their pillows dark around the outline of their heads. Food was gritty. Milk was gritty. Children walked to school in goggles and dust masks, and the dust got into lungs. Dust pneumonia, they called it. It killed the old, the young, the already weak. Cattle were found dead with their stomachs packed with dirt. The storms grew until they stopped being a local problem. In May 1934, a single storm system lifted an estimated 300 million tons of plains topsoil and carried it east. Dust fell on Chicago like dirty snow, darkened the sky over New York and Washington, and settled on ships 300 miles out in the Atlantic. Congressmen could wipe Oklahoma off their windowsills, and still, families held on until they couldn't. Crops failed year after year. Banks foreclosed. And the greatest migration in American history began. Hundreds of thousands of people, whole counties emptying, loaded what they had onto trucks and drove west toward California, where they were met not with work but with contempt. Okies, they were called, whatever state they'd actually come from. The strangest part is how quiet it all was from a distance. No single day of catastrophe, except Black Sunday. Just year after grinding year of a sky that wouldn't rain and ground that wouldn't stay put. A disaster with no clear beginning and seemingly no end. In 1931, it stopped. So what ended it? Partly, eventually, the rain came back. It always does. But the more interesting answer is that this was one of the first disasters where people were forced to admit, publicly and officially, that they had caused it. A soil scientist named Hugh Bennett had been arguing for years that the land was being farmed to death. In 1935, testifying before Congress, he got help from the sky itself. As he made his case, dust from the plains and 2,000 miles away was drifting over Washington. He gestured at the darkening windows. Congress created the Soil Conservation Service that same year. What followed was quietly revolutionary. Contour plowing, crop rotation, land left deliberately in grass, and more than 200 million trees planted in shelter belts down the spine of the plains, a living windbreak from Canada toward Texas. The dust never fully stopped, but the land got its armor partially back, and the black blizzards faded. It's worth sitting with what that means. The Dust Bowl wasn't ended by luck alone. It was ended, as much as it was ended, by people accepting an unbearable truth, that the catastrophe wasn't happening to them. It was, in part, coming from them. That admission is rare. Most disasters in this series never get one. It's tempting to treat the Dust Bowl as a black and white photograph. Something from the age of jalopies and bread lines, safely finished. I'd resist that. Because the recipe hasn't changed. Take a landscape that seems endlessly forgiving. Remove its defenses for short-term gain, and then wait for the weather to turn. That recipe still works. It's being followed right now on several continents. The people of the plains weren't villains, and they weren't fools. They were doing what everyone, the government, the railroads, the banks, the experts, told them was right. And it worked. Until the day it catastrophically didn't. The lesson they paid a decade of their lives for is the simplest one in this series. The land keeps the books, even when nobody's looking. And sooner or later, it settles them. If you want another catastrophe that refuses to end, next time a small Pennsylvania town where a fire lit in 1962 slipped into the coal seams underground and is still burning today beneath streets almost no one is left to walk. Centralia, I'll see you there.